I'm sure watching this on recording for a book study is definitely not the same. Tonight it's our next to last week. We only have one more week after this. And tonight was chapters 10, 11, 12, and 13. So 4 chapters. They were pretty short, especially that first one. The very, very first one, the key to duplication. Was anybody surprised that the duplication chapter was the shortest chapter? So you guys, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us on the call tonight. I can't be the only one talking the whole time. All right, so the key to duplication. I loved it because I think a lot of times we get paralyzed by trying to figure out what the perfect process is to get our newbies off and running. Like, what email do you send them? What training do we put them on? When do I call them? All of these things. And if you notice, her chapter on duplication had none of that in there. Her chapter on duplication was just do your own business, and they will duplicate that, right? Now, that's a little bit simpler than what it really is, but she does say the more complicated you make it, the slower you will grow. And if you ever wonder why your team is not duplicating, you have to look at you. And guys, as I read these 4 chapters tonight, it's everything that Sarah has preached to me, that Nikki has preached to me, that I preached to you guys, that Jill preached to you guys on the call the other night. That's okay. It is all of the same thing. So like if this book didn't hit home, like, okay, I need to do these things for my business, I don't know what will, because all of this stuff it wasn't anything I hadn't heard before. She just is like a no BS approach. Like, you have to do this if you want to be successful. And one of those things was the duplication. And so she said, if you feel like things are slowing down, you need to ask yourself, if everyone on your team did exactly what you did today for your business, how big would your business be? And if you didn't do anything for Plexus today, well, then that's why you're not duplicating. Or if you didn't do anything for Plexus at all this week for your business, that's why you're not duplicating. And so I love that she said, when you find yourself frustrated, ask yourself that question. Because I've been there all the time. I certainly have been there where I'm like, we're not growing. No one's adding. Like, the numbers are so low. June was such an explosive month. July's not. Like, what is happening? And then the other thing, too, with duplication for me is once you do start to get a team, then you just start focusing on them. And then you forget your own business. So she said, to start the duplication process, you just have to work your business. And what she means by that is add people to your list, reach out to those people on your list, reach back to people on your list, invite people onto 3-way calls, add those who don't want the business as customers, and get paid. That's what you should do to duplicate down to your team. And of course, she added in here, you have to have fun. I would probably think that more people, not more, maybe more people have joined me, or at least asked me about Plexus, because I have fun. And I look like I'm having fun. I look like I'm feeling good. I'm having a good time, right? And so that energy is what attracts people. The products are great, and I post about the products. But it's like what Jill said. Jill's not posting all about the products all the time. Certainly she posts about what they've done for her, but it's the energy, your storefront. And she talks about that in this book right here. She said people will ultimately join your team because of you and your energy. You can know everything about the products. You could know everything. You could have the best health testimony. But if you're not putting out good energy, no one's going to want to join you, right? It's like if you go to Walmart or anywhere, you go to any store. I'm trying to think of one where I've been recently. If you go anywhere, you call somebody, maybe it's like the cable company, right? You really, really want Showtime. But when you call the cable company, the person has had a bad day and they're a butthead. Even though you really want cable and that person sells the cable you want, you don't want to buy it from them, right? Because they were a butthead. They put you in a bad mood. You'd be like, well, fine, I'm not getting it then. I'll go to another cable company. That's what happens when you put out that negative energy. I've seen it so many times. And the other thing too is that energy, and it's not fun. If people have more than one Plexus person that they're friends with, they're going to go with the person to them looks like they're having more fun and is more about plexus. They're going to go with the crazy plexus person versus the person that just posts every couple of days. Okay. So she talks about that, and that energy is what you can duplicate down to your team. So if you're checked out and you're funky, your team is checked out and funky. And this makes me so sad because I've had level ones that have quit, and they have teams under them. They have teams that are rocking the business, not as quickly as they'd like, but it makes me so sad when they have that negative mindset because it just bleeds into their team and they don't see it because they say, oh no, my team doesn't see that. I'm super positive with my team. But you can't fake that energy. You can't fake it. You really have to believe it. So that's what she talks about in this chapter. She also talked about something that I thought was really interesting. She said in her experience, and when they even look at crunching the numbers, your people on your team on average will do half of what you do. Half. So if you are only, putting in minimum effort, then they're going to do half of the minimum effort. And so she said the only way you can ensure that your team is going to be rocking and rolling is for you to be the top producer on your team. You have to be that rock star. And you guys have probably heard us say that over and over and over. Yeah, Betty. Jill was a huge wake-up call. It's funny, though. I was teasing Marion. She's not on the call. But she said something in a thread the other day. She said, Amy, I added you to three-way chats because Jill finally, because Jill told me to. And she said, I know you've been telling me to do them this whole time, but I'm doing them now. And so I was like, okay. I was like, I'm just going to tell Jill to tell everyone on the team what to do from now on. But it's the same way. Like Sarah Taylor has told me something over and over and over and over and over. It wasn't until I heard it from somebody else I was like, oh, okay, I should do that. Same with this book, right? So be your own rock star. You got to be the top producer on your team. And then she talked a little bit about kind of coaching those people when you duplicate. We'll get into that a little bit later. But really with duplication, you can teach them, coach them, inspire them, collaborate. You can have fun together. We can go on retreats, right? We can do these book studies. We can go and hang out. We can plan. We can do all the things. But I can't motivate. Okay. But I can't motivate you. I can't motivate you guys. You guys have to motivate yourself. Your team has to motivate yourself. We're on one of the best teams in Plexus. I mean, do you guys realize, some of you who've been around a while probably know, but there are people who have ranked to a jewel status who have no upline. Their uplines are checked out. They are check collectors. Their upline, they have no team pages, nothing. They're doing it on their own. And we have like a super, super supportive team. But even with all of that, all the training and the calls, only we can motivate ourselves. And that's so true. There have been times when I've been unmotivated and Sarah Taylor tries to motivate me or like kick me in the pants, but I have to do it myself. I have to get out of my own funk. I got to put my big girl panties on, and I got to change it to a positive mindset. And it's hard when you're in that negative mindset and it starts to duplicate. It can be hard. But I liked that in her duplication chapter, she didn't talk about the steps to duplication, because really it doesn't matter what they are. As long as you're duplicating something and it works for you, that's what you duplicate. So I know before I would get all caught up and, okay, we need a good system for our new ambassadors. What's it going to be? Go. And we'd come up with stuff, and then it would never duplicate or people wouldn't do it. And that's because duplication isn't something like, it's not like I work in an office and I can like send a memo to everyone on the team and say, okay, from now on, we're all doing this. No, people mimic their leader. They're going to mimic you. Your team's going to mimic you. So if you're not doing three-way chats, your team's not going to do it. If you're not calling your new ambassadors on the phone to tell them how to take their products, your team's not going to do that. If you're not sending emails to your customers welcoming them or thanking them, your team's not going to do that. So you have to be your own rock star and then just tell your team what you're doing. For me, I have the 4 steps. I actually posted those on the Rockstars page for duplication. One thing I have found that I'm doing this month for my new level ones that I've signed, I'm not giving them the option anymore. I'm being more forceful. So when they come and they say, yeah, I want to get to silver, I'm like, hey, that's great. Before I would say, that's great. I want you to think of some names. I want you to write those names on a list. I want you to watch these videos. Think about having a launch party. We're going to do all these things, right? And then what happens? Nothing. If they're a go-getter, they rock and they roll. If not, I check in. I'm like, how's your list? They're like, oh, yeah, I haven't really made it. So my duplication now is simple for my new level ones. You want to work the business? You are making your first post today. No option, not tomorrow, not the next day. Today, you're going to send me your first post. I'm going to edit it. You, anyone who comments on your post, you are going to reply to them, and then we're going to put them in a three-way. No options. Like I'm telling them, okay, you want to work the business. This is what you do. And it's working. The girl that I just signed on Monday hit silver today. So you have to have that duplication and not make it an option. Whatever it is, right? We can't be afraid to tell them what to do because they don't know. They're looking to us to do it anyway. They're looking to us to guide them. So, chapter 11. I know some of you guys haven't read it, but this is the one that will smack you in the face. If anyone on here, hopefully you're not offended because this is the bullshit chapter. It's the BS we tell ourselves, and she goes through all of the most common excuses that we give ourselves and all of the most common objections. So last week we talked about objections that potentials have. This week it's all about our own excuses. And this is one that you need to read yourself, chapter 11, because she goes through it and she just debunks all of our excuses, okay? And I will tell you, I do think, I'll tell you as we go through these which ones I've had. But one thing I think that's helped me be successful is I don't let the excuses get in the way. I'll tell you a couple one that I did though, and I could tell looking back over the past 2 years when my business is slowed, it's because I got stuck in these excuses. So the first one is I don't have time. I can't tell you how many times I hear that. I hear it all of the time, and I get it. We are busy. She says the same thing. Everyone's busy. We're all working 1, 2, 3 jobs. We're all have long hours, or we all have kids. We all have stress and family issues and money trouble and all kinds of issues. We get it, right? But she says you got to be honest with yourself because you're finding time for the things you want to do, right? And if you don't think you have time for your Plexus business, then Plexus just isn't a priority. And that's okay, but don't pretend it is. Don't pretend you're rocking and rolling and working your business every day and be mad that you're not growing when you're really not making it a priority. Because, like she says, you find the time for things that are priority to you. So she said, and you've probably heard this before, right? The next time you find yourself saying, I don't have time today for Plexus, instead you should say Plexus isn't a priority today and see how that makes you feel. And certainly there are days, we get it, things come up, stuff happens. You may not be able to do everything today, but in general, is your Plexus business a priority? Because if it's not a priority, then that's totally fine. You just need to know then your business is not going to grow like you want it to, right? You have to adjust your expectations too with your commitment. And what I like about this though is she even goes further in to tell us why we give that excuse. And why we give that excuse is because it's hard. So she says, like, if the number one thing you should be making time for, okay? You don't have to make time for book studies. You don't have to make time for the 7-day challenge. You don't have to make time for the team call with Jill. You have to make time for your own business and reaching out to potentials. That's what you have to make time for. You have to make time for picking up the phone, reaching out, and talking to people. And she says, if you're not doing that, she even says, if you are spending all of your time on the team page or in message threads, then you are avoiding your time where you should be growing your business. And it's because it's hard, right? As humans, we just avoid things that are hard. Talking to people about your business is hard. It makes us uncomfortable. Even now, 2.5 years, I mean, I get uncomfortable talking to people about the business, and I shouldn't. I have the daggone Lexus in my driveway. I should be walking in like, who wants to join my team? Because we are a great team. But I still get uncomfortable talking about the business. It's hard. So she said, the hard thing is you got to do it first. And she'll get more into that when we talk about time commitment. But she says, I'll bet you $1,000 that you're doing everything else in your business before you're talking to people about your business. And this is so true. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a slump in my business because I'm not in a good mindset to be reaching out to new people. I'm like in the funky place. You know, I call it the valley of despair and the roller coaster. So what do? I spend all day on the team page. I love you guys. I love that team page, but that is not growing my business. And that's what she says here. I bet you're doing everything else in your business before talking to people about your business. All the other stuff that we think is so necessary to growth really isn't, because talking to people, it's hard. It's much easier to be with one of your team members and have a coaching call, be on the team page. But you have got to make the time for your business. So that's what she said is the one excuse. And she said, if you find yourself saying you don't have time, she wants you to make a timesheet. I think this is a great activity. One thing, especially if you guys are some of you guys are just joining us here, you want to do all of her activities. Not every chapter has one, but it's really good reflective work. And this one is a timesheet. It's not necessarily a timesheet that says, oh, I watched 2 episodes of Game of Thrones. I probably could have watched 1 and then worked my Plexus business for an hour. That's not what she means. That's a great exercise too. If you don't think you have time to work your Plexus business, just jot down for 1 week how you spend your time, and I bet you can find it. What she wants you to do, though, is when you are spending time on Plexus, write down what you're actually doing, right? Are you scrolling on Facebook, commenting on your team's posts? That is not productive. Are you in the team page, welcoming people? That's not productive. It's great. You definitely want to do those things, but only after you've worked your own personal business. So I love that little timesheet exercise. The other excuse she said we give ourselves is, I'm talking to plenty of people. I'm talking to so many people. She says, if you're finding time to talk to people, that's great. That's a start. But another big old piece of BS we tell ourselves is that we're talking to enough people. And it was one of her people on her team that came up with that quote that we all use all the time that you guys have probably heard. I didn't know I wasn't talking to enough people until I started talking to enough people. And so I would challenge you guys this next week to double the amount of people you reach out to in the week. So if normally you only talk to 2 or 3 new people, this week do 6. If you normally talk to 10 new people, aim for 20. And then you will see how many people you should actually be reaching out to. Now, she likes the 5-3-2 method, and a lot of people like to organize their Plexus time by this. Her 5-3-2 is pretty simple. You do this every day. You reach out to 5 new people. You follow up with 3 people who are in your funnel. And remember, those are people who are on your list that you've already talked to about Plexus. So 5 new people, 3 in your funnel, and 2 people on your team, 2 of your business partners. If you don't have any people working the business, then you follow up with 2 of your wholesale ambassadors. Even if it's just a quick text of encouragement or a shout out on Facebook. One thing that I have found, guys, when I'm in the funk and I'm in the bad mindset and I don't feel like doing anything, if I force myself to do the 5-3-2, that activity gets me excited. It like tricks me into getting out of the funk. If you do the activity, just the process of the activity will get you going. And that's what she talks about. But she says, so if you or your team isn't growing, or even worse, if you're going backwards, we've all lost points, right? You need to ask yourself 2 questions. How many times have I talked to someone about the business this week, and how many 3-way calls have I done this week, or 3-way messages? She said, because you can't BS those numbers. If you're actually talking to new people every single day, it's a game of numbers. This business is numbers, and there's no way to BS the numbers. Now, if you're talking to 10 people every day, but it's the same 10 over and over and over that are been on the fence and been on the fence, that's not going to work either, right? So the big BS she says we tell ourselves is that we're talking to enough people, okay? The next thing that we say all the time is I've recruited enough people. And so she says, maybe you've been telling yourself, hey, I've been working awesome. I recruited 20 people. I should be gold, right? She said, well, think about it. If it only took recruiting that small of a number, everyone would be that, right? Everyone in the industry. So she said, don't go into management mode. Always be recruiting. Always, you can never be recruiting enough. And I think this is evident if you guys look at a lot of our diamonds. If you look at the ones whose names are always on that weekly leaderboard, if you pay attention to any of that at all, sure, once you hit diamond, you can kind of check out a little bit, right? But you will still stop growing. Just because you had this great residual income doesn't mean you can't work your business. And so when you look at those weekly leaderboards, or you look at the diamonds who are on stage at convention that win the prizes and the trips, and the diamonds who won the shopping spree, it's because they are still duplicating, because all of those, all that recognition is growth in your first 4 levels. So those diamonds have to be duplicating in their upper tier of the organization, right? And so that's what she says. You always have to be recruiting. And she has a challenge in here. She says she challenges all of us to bring on 25 new people in the next 6 months. And she says, so what if you fall short? So what if you've never added more than 3 in a month? If you shoot for the moon, you'll land among the stars. And I like this. Eric Worre does the 20 and 30. We know it's possible because we've had people fast start, right? We've had even people add more than that. We've had people add 25, 30 in a month. It's all your activity and all what you're willing to put into the effort, right? The other thing she says we tell ourselves that she's going to call BS on is we say, I'm being coachable, but nothing is happening. And she says, well, if you were 100% coachable, you would be seeing success. She said, so are you really talking to, she said, this is when you really need to look at yourself. And this is where it gets hard. Nobody wants to admit, maybe I'm not so great at that. Maybe I could do a little bit better, right? Are you hiding behind email and texting instead of picking up the phone like you've been told? Are you really talking to enough people? Are you really being consistent and touching your business every day? Do you really have faith in the 3-way message? Are you working on what's between your ears every day? And so she says you definitely need to think about, if you think you're coachable but nothing's happening, are you really doing those things? Another one is I've got a runner. And I don't know if I hear this too often, and where people think I've got a runner, I can kind of quit my business because, I got a rock star on my team, which is what she talks about. What I see people doing, though, is being focused on finding that runner. I got to find the runner. I've got all these wholesalers, but I need a runner. I need a runner. And that drives me crazy because your runner is going to come from those wholesalers. If you are having fun with them, you're excited with them, and they love their products, and you are doing something in your business that they're attracted to, right? Because all of the runners on my team, nobody joined for the business. I didn't join for the business, and I was one of Sarah Taylor's first runners, okay? But if she hadn't added me to the team page, which I told her not to, and if I hadn't seen how much fun it was and think I could do it, and she checked in with me and made sure I loved the products and she followed up, that's what got me to work the business. Dylan is one of my favorite examples. Well, shoot, even as I'm looking at the names, even Rochelle, I know you didn't sign up to work the business, right? You're like, you love it. Yeah, no, it Tanzan, nobody, right? Nobody does. Dylan's one of my favorite ones because she was like me. She was like anti, but because she started seeing kind of the team page, it was fun, stuff was happening, and because she started feeling good and started sharing, then that's how you get your runners. But if you're laser focused on finding a runner, you're going to be missing all of the runners that are already on your team, right? They just may be stuck in die-off, and if you're not nurturing them, they're going to quit, whereas that person in die-off could be one of your runners. She said one of the things we tell ourselves is I can only sell the products, I can't sell the business. I can't sell the business. I don't have a business testimony. I can't do it. She says, wrong. That's total BS. She says, the real problem is that you're talking only about the products and you're not talking enough about the business. She said, remember, most of the time you should lead with the business and then default to the products. And she said, there's two reasons you won't lead with the business. Either you feel insecure when talking about it, or you're not coachable. So if you're not leading with the business, figure out which one applies to you. And she said, because the truth is you get what you ask for. You're only asking for people to try the products. That's all you're going to get, which makes sense, right? Like that was a big eye opener for me because I don't lead with the business. Very rarely. I've started to get more bold in it, but very rarely do I lead with the business unless it's a dream team or that I want on my team, right? If I'm just doing my daily reach, it's more about how the products can help them. But this was like smack in the face. You get what you ask for. That's very true. If you don't talk about the business, you'll never get business partners. And I love that because I've been on so many three-way calls where my level one tells me ahead of time, hey, just so you know, this person doesn't want the business. In other words, Amy, don't mention the business and scare them off, right? But how do we know that? We don't know. If we're not talking about the business, we're not going to get business builders. So I love what she said, though. And she said, of course, if you're not talking about the business and you're really focused on the products, it's because it feels safe and it's comfortable. So if you're on page 153, I want you to look at where she said the one BS we tell ourselves is, I don't need three-way calls. And again, we're going to say three-way chats. It's 3 sentences. She doesn't even go into a description. She says, this is major league BS. You need them whether you're new or a seasoned veteran. If you don't believe me, go back and reread chapter 6. So that's what she says about the 3 ways. I don't have the right network, and she calls BS on that. I've heard this a lot from a lot of people. I don't have the right network. My people can't afford it. My people don't care about getting healthy. My people are all skeptics. They're all kind of disgruntled skeptics, right? But she says, you're prejudging them. You really have no idea what someone wants or needs until you actually ask them, right? Which is right. And she says, anyone with big enough gumption, that's not really the word she used, but with big enough gumption to reach out and talk to people, you're not going to know until you do that. More times than not, when you do it, you're going to get people who do want exactly what you have. And you've prejudged them. I've seen this a lot with people who either they assume their person can't afford it and they prejudge them. That happens all of the time. And I get it when people are posting on Facebook that they can't afford things, right? We know when people are on a tight budget, but you also don't know what their priorities are. Maybe they would cut $100 from their budget to be able to feel better, right? So don't prejudge. And then the other time I see people prejudge is when somebody is super healthy and fit, or they're very into organic, crunchy stuff. You assume that they're not going to like our products or that they'd be skeptical of them. So you prejudge your network that way. She talks about you're not talking to enough people because you don't want to be that person who people want to run away from. And she says, good. I don't want you to be that person either, right? Nobody wants to be that person. But somewhere, somehow, you have to get it in your head that reaching out to people about your opportunity and your products is not bothering them. Somehow you think that's a bother. And I love on page 154 what she says. So I want you guys to picture yourself wherever you're at wherever you'd be sitting next to somebody. Where was I sitting? Oh, I was at gymnastics last night. Adelaide is in a new gymnastics class, which means new moms sitting at the window watching their kid, right? So what if you knew the person next to me at gymnastics desperately needed to earn more money so she could get out of a broken or abusive marriage? And here I am not offering it to her because I'm too chicken. And she says, what if the person next to you running around town is living in a fancy house that she can no longer afford and she is sneaking off to the food bank to feed her children? What if the person next to you is trying to recapture an identity outside of being a mom and a wife and just misses the social and intellectual benefits of working outside of the home but needs that flexibility? So I love that because I've been too afraid to approach people before, like people in line at the grocery store. Michelle Collins isn't on the call, but she's like a rock star at talking to strangers. I am not. I get all awkward and weird. But I love if I put this in my head and think like, what if that person really needs Plexus and I'm keeping my mouth shut because I'm too chicken? Like I got to get over myself and talk to that person. And she says, that's what you have to think of. You have a gift. You've heard the stories. You've seen the stories from your company and your products. You have a gift. Don't decide for someone whether or not they need that gift. I love that. That really hit home. The other one she says we talk about a lot is I don't want to work from person to person or like phone call to phone call because I don't want to be pushy. And she says, remember, we're not pushy. We're professional when you treat it that way. She says a lot of times we tell ourselves this should be easier. And she says, why do you think it should be easy? She said, earning 6 figures is not easy, whether it's in a day job or a network marketing company. She says, you're confusing simple with easy. Your business is incredibly simple when it comes down to it. We're just talking to people, right? But it's not easy. She says, why on earth would it ever be easy? Another thing that we tell ourselves that she says is BS. We tell ourselves, I don't have what it takes to be a leader. I'm not a leader. I'm not a leader. I'm not successful, right? No one's going to follow me. And she says the fact that if you look at your company and all the people that are successful, the fact that they are every type of person from every type of background tells you that this is BS. Anyone can be a leader. What you're telling yourself, what you're actually saying is you don't believe in yourself. You don't believe you have what it takes. But she says leadership is nothing more than influence. That's all it is. And think about it. Who's the leader? It's the person who has influence that others want to follow. So she says it's not complicated. If you want to be a leader in this business, show your team how to build. That's it. Build your business. Walk the walk and talk the talk, and that makes you a leader. That was one of my first eye-opening things at my first Plexus convention. I'd only been with the company 3 months. Wasn't even going to go. I was supposed to go run my first half marathon out in Wyoming. But I had my thyroid surgery like the month before the race and had to quit training and couldn't go. So I got suckered into going to the Plexus convention. And when I got there, it was in Phoenix, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, because I didn't know anyone at the time in Plexus except the people I just saw on our team page and Sarah Taylor. I hadn't met a lot of other people, hadn't accepted a lot of friend requests, right? Back then we didn't have Zooms and all these videos. So I was expecting to walk into Plexus convention with all of these skinny, tall, fit, no offense, but blondes. That's what and maybe it's because Sarah Taylor's blonde, but I thought, here I am, 3 months into my journey. I'm a little less bloated. I haven't lost a lot of weight, but I am not one of those Celeste Gwynns. That is not. And that's what I thought was going to be at convention. And when I walked into that, and I think back then there were only like 5,000 people, maybe 3,000. It was eye-opening. Oh my gosh, there were people of all shapes and sizes and hair colors, men, women, all ages. People on stage in college, people on stage that had grandkids. That's what I loved about it. So I was like, oh my gosh, all of these people from all different walks of life are successful. There were people there who were on stage getting awards who were Amish and don't have phones. I mean, if they can do it, anybody can be successful. So that's what I love. And then she said one of the other things that we tell ourselves all the time, and Michelle, this always makes me think of your person. She says, it's saturated where I live. It doesn't work in my town. My town's too small. We know too many of the same people. I don't have anyone near me to help me. Yeah, Tamsin, I'm blown away at convention. You can't, yeah. That's what I love about it, especially even when you look at the diamonds. Sure, there's several that look like Celeste Gwynn, right? Because that's what she attracts on her team. But there's all different, and I just love that. I love that. But she says she flips out when she hears somebody say this excuse. She's like, that's BS. There's no town too small, and there's no such thing as saturation in today's world. And this is 100% true. We have 3 Plexus Lexus within a mile, right here in our neighborhood. I'm trying to count because we got some new ones. Yeah, 3 in a mile. Within 15 miles, there are probably 20 Plexus Lexus within 15 miles of our house. If you go within 30 minutes, because in Houston you can't get anywhere less than 30 minutes. 30 minutes, there's probably 40 or 45, okay? So she says this is BS, and she tells a story about herself. She lived in Bozeman, Montana. It's a town of 39,000 people, okay? She said, so of course, she had no local team. Whoever she signed under was not local, and she just started talking to people. She added someone who lived in her town, so then it was a team of 2. That person added somebody who ended up being in California that she knew, right? So then they had a California team, but most of her team was from that little small town. And then she said her person who skyrocketed to the top of the company, she was from Hebron, North Dakota. That town had 747 people. And now you would think that everyone in that town, right, is on her team. It's like Celeste. She's from Little McAllen, Texas, and she probably has signed up almost everyone in that town, but it doesn't mean somebody in that town can't be successful. Especially today with social media, people have connections all over the country. It's much easier to connect with people. But then the other thing is you're constantly talking to new people, right? So until every single person in the whole entire world is on Plexus, then it is not saturated. Yeah, so Betty points out Sonia Dudley, she's one of the diamonds, and I watched a lot of her videos. I remember when I first started, and I didn't even know, I'm like Googling Plexus on YouTube. I watched a lot of her stuff. Her town not only was so small, it was poor. Her town was always one of those, I can't remember the word, but economically depressed, right? Always on the list. So you would think nobody in that town could afford Plexus. Well, when Sonia started working her Plexus business in her town, and this is in her Diamond documentary, she changed the financial situation of her entire town because she got all of them working the business, and they started traveling around to different towns and having meetings and having opportunity events and signing and traveling. She changed the financial situation of her town. Who could do that? I think of my small town. I haven't done anything in my little teeny hometown before Plexus that changed the financial outlook of Chillicothe, Ohio. But I bet I have now. I bet I have now because half the team is from Chillicothe, Ohio. And think of all the, the money they're making because of Plexus. So I love that. Don't assume that because someone lives in a small town or a poor town that they can't be successful. And then she just says, you know what? You shouldn't believe in excuses because we have a short time here. At the end of your days, so basically she says, right, when you're old and gray and you're on your deathbed, do you want to look back and know that you were brave and you went for it? Or do you want to look back and have to have lived a life of excuses? Whew, that kind of hits you right in the gut. Yeah, I think you're right. She was just looking for any excuse. Yeah, I think you're right. Chapter 12. This is a good one. I don't know if it's affected any of you guys on your team yet. It will if it hasn't. It certainly has with mine, especially being that a lot of my team is in Chillicothe, and it's a teeny tiny town, and we all went to high school together, and most of us all went to college together. And now the people we went to high school with are the teachers of our kids, right? So she talks about in this chapter, karma's a bitch if you are. I don't think we have a huge problem at all with what she's saying is treat others as you would want to be treated, right? So basically, you don't want to be stealing people's potentials, right? Or she gave the example, if somebody comes to you and they tell you, oh my gosh, I want to join your team, I want to work this business. One, and we do this, we know this, you should always say, are you working with anyone? Have you talked to anyone about Plexus, right? Hopefully they'll tell you no, okay? Sometimes, though, they'll tell you yes. So we should always encourage them to go back to that person, right? That's what we do. Now, having said that, she tells an example in here of that person came back and said, oh, well, you know what? She mentioned it once. That person isn't even working the business anymore. I can't even get her to answer my calls. So she was like, oh, okay, sure, sign up. Well, what come to find out, and we've had this happen on our team, I'll give you a couple examples, that potential was lying to her. She actually was talking to someone that was already on her team. So it's not like the person was checked out, right? She just didn't want to join her. She didn't tell the person, hey, I'm sorry, I know I've been working with you for a month, but I really don't want to be on your team. I want to be on someone else's. She didn't say that. So then the author signs this girl up because as far as she knows, she's not been talking to anybody except one person who's now no longer active. Once she joins her team, she said it was an absolute shitstorm. She said because that's when the people under her came and said, what are you doing? You signed up my potential. Her that whole leg lost trust in her. She said it was terrible, terrible, terrible. And so she said, take it from her. If somebody tells you that, say, oh, really? Well, what's that person's name? And then reach out and do some fact checking to make sure that person actually isn't active. Now, I have not had that happen. What we have had happen on the team, because it's a small town, and as long as you're transparent, guys, you'll never get caught in this. And that's what she says. As long as you go with your gut tells you something's off, go with your gut. Because she says if you ignore your gut, then you're going to be in trouble. And as long as you're transparent, you'll never get in trouble if you're transparent. So I've had people come to me livid, raging, because somebody on the team welcomed one of their potentials, okay? And they want me to just hammer that person for stealing their potential. So here's my piece of advice. It's not in the book, but you always need to assume positive intent. I know it sucks when this happens. You always want to assume positive intent, especially on the part of your teammate. We cannot assume that that person even knew the potential was talking to you, right? Because I've had people like the sample swappers, they ask people for samples and they don't tell anyone they've already tried Plexus. We had one girl that was a customer of someone on the team and we didn't know it, and she had reached out to 3 other people to get samples, okay? And it made us all feel kind of yucky once we figured out and we're transparent about it. But as long as you do your due diligence, and if somebody ever says, yes, I'm talking to so-and-so, you really want to encourage them to go back to that person. If that they really don't like that person, then it's up to them. It's up to the consumer, right, to make that decision. But that's what she says. And I like to always assume positive intent because I really don't think people go out to steal ambassadors. I really don't. I think everyone on our team, I can't think of anybody who would do that. But I can see a potential not being honest and saying, oh, yeah, technically I did talk to somebody 6 months ago and they sent me a stick. Totally, you know. So the other thing she talks about, though, is one thing is do not assume that your upline has to be local. And I think all of you guys are probably a testament to that. I mean, sure, it would be awesome if we all lived in the same town. It would be great if we could get together. But like she says, you know, don't be confined only to where you live. You're not taking full advantage of the social commerce that is network marketing. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I hate that. Rochelle was like, even worse, when you give them a sample and then they order from Amazon or eBay. Yeah, that's even worse than going with somebody else. You're like, dang it. And it kills me too, because I'm like, if my friend had a bakery and they made like my favorite chocolate chip cookies, I would order them from my friend's bakery. I wouldn't go to Amazon to order my chocolate chip cookies. But for some reason, people are totally okay with it this way, you know? What else does she talk about here? Oh, she's just talking more about the local schmokel is what she calls it. And the other thing she talks about is meeting and event etiquette. So if any of you guys have been to a meeting or an event, she talks about before something comes out of your mouth, ask yourself if you would like one of your potentials or one of your team members to hear it. And and it's kind of like the golden rule for events. So like if you go to an opportunity meeting, right, obviously we don't want to be complaining about something or complaining about customer service hold times, right? If we're in front of potentials or we're in front of our team or whatever. So she just talks about that. And I will give you a perfect example of this. The other thing too is if you're at these conventions and events, you don't want to be skipping sessions, right? It's just kind of like being at work. Like you don't want to be skipping not only for yourself, but that gets back to your team. Like they're going to know, man, she skipped that session? I thought this was important for us to be here. I was at convention, not this year, last year in Vegas. We were out of session. It was like 11 o'clock at night in the casino, bunch of Plexus people around at the casino. I had somebody from my team, 2 people actually from my team, find me at the bar. I think we were all hanging out, find me because they were horrified of what they heard in the bathroom. They had overheard, how can I say this without spilling it? They had overheard somebody who is a jewel that they know talking badly about Sarah Taylor. Like being mean, like mean girl talk, not saying like, oh, you know, I can't believe Sarah Taylor didn't get the check or whatever, but mean girl talk. And it was somebody that they looked up to as a jewel and that they wanted to be like in this business. And that jewel was being a mean girl in the stall and talking to another mean girl and didn't think, right? It's 11 o'clock in the bathroom at Vegas. You didn't think anybody would hear. So I had 2 people from my team who were really upset by that. Once I brought it up to Sarah Taylor's attention, we have a little group thread. 3 other people from Amanda Grubb's team happened to be also in the bathroom, and they brought the same thing to Amanda. So I don't think any of you guys would do that, but it's like, oh, that's what she talks about in here. Always be aware. Event etiquette. And then her other one that I love, karma's a bitch if you are. Don't make shit up. So basically, don't oversell your products. And I think this is why we're so hesitant in Plexus to really push the weight loss. Like, it's great, but I think especially if you've been around on the team for a while, we know the weight loss doesn't happen quickly for most people. So we're probably more hesitant to talk about it. What she's saying is, don't oversell it, right? So the other thing too that I love that we see often, she says, don't embellish your stats, don't doctor before and after pictures, and for the love of God, don't steal another company's pictures. I don't think we do this. We've had people steal Plexus people's pictures before and stick their logo on it. We've had that happen several times. I even know some jewels who, when you look at their before and after picture, they edited it because you can see the shower doors like all warped. It's not cool. Not cool. Especially when you're at that level. Even if you're silver or a diamond, you still have people under you that look up to you. And the other thing she says is, don't assume that since a colleague posted something on social media that it's true. We have this a lot. You see a post, it's from Plexus Ambassador. It sounds like a great post. You go ahead and repost it. It's not true. You have to fact check everything. Now, if I post something, you can guarantee I have fact checked it. In fact, there was one just yesterday on our team page. I had seen in another Jules team page, they posted about the caffeine in Slim. They posted about the 2 amino acids. I wasn't sure that was true. It sounded fantastic. They said there was caffeinaic acid and chlorogenic acid in the green coffee bean, and we extract the chlorogenic acid. Well, I knew that was true. I knew we used the chlorogenic acid, but I wasn't so certain that those 2 amino acids were what was in the green coffee bean, and one was not caffeine and one was caffeine. So before I posted that in the team page, I spent a good 20 minutes on NIH, the National Institute of Health, researching the amino acids in green coffee bean. And their post is wrong. There are those amino acids, but it's not 2 that make up the green coffee, and we don't extract the 1. Chlorogenic acid is the amino acid in the green coffee bean. We extract that. Once they roast the bean, that turns it into the caffeic acid. So it was technically wrong. So I had to change it up and edit it before I post on the team page. So even then, even if it sounds really, really good, if you are not sure, then don't post it. Definitely fact check it, okay? And then chapter 13. Boy, this is a great exercise. If you guys haven't done this yet, and you probably haven't since you haven't read, which is fine. I'm not. This chapter 13, is your time is worth $962 an hour. And I'm going to try to go quick because we've been on here an hour. Time is your most valuable resource. She says the first thing you have to do is figure out how much money do you want to make a year with Plexus, and then how many hours a week are you willing to do that? And then you need to come up with that dollar figure, okay? So she tells you, for instance, she only wanted to work 20 hours a week. That was it, okay? 20 hours times 52 weeks a year was 1,040 hours a year that she was going to work on her business. That was it. But she wanted to make $1 million, okay? When you divide that by the number of hours, her time was worth $962. She said, do you think that had an impact on how I spent my time? She said, you better believe it did. So she says, start with that. Do your numbers. Figure out how much you want to make with Plexus. Figure out, and since you're already working it, figure out either how much time you want to spend or how much time you think you are spending. Because here's another thing that will show you. If you're making $100, but you're spending 40 hours a week, right, then your hourly rate is not right. You're spending way more time for too less amount of money. But she says do that, and that is going to give you an idea of how much your time is worth, because then when you do her exercise on managing your work schedule, you're going to have a different lens to see it through, okay? And I'll tell you guys, you cannot dream too big with Plexus. I have seen the paychecks. I know we're not all there yet to the diamond status, the double diamond. When Jill on the call the other night said her goal was $1 million a month, that is not unrealistic in Plexus. As crazy as that sounds, that is not unrealistic. Think about it. We only have 2 double diamonds in the company. 2. Think of how many more our company is just getting started. So don't think that if you want to make $1 million, you only want to work 10 hours a week. That's okay. Figure out that number, but then you've got to figure out your hours. You have to figure out when you're going to work. And I love that she says office hours are BS, because I've thought this for a really long time. There are jewels, there are Plexus ambassadors, there are silvers that will tell you you should schedule office hours, okay? I'm only going to work my Plexus business Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 to 2. Well, that's BS, right? And I love that she says that in here, because guess what? Life happens. Kids get sick. Your day job puts you on a project that you have a deadline for. You're showing 12 houses that day, right, Michelle? Life gets in the way. Every week is different. And even tomorrow, even though I have it all planned in my calendar, I guarantee tomorrow is not going to go with what I have planned. So instead of trying to set those business hours, what you need to do is put everything you need to do in your life in a calendar. One calendar. Don't have a Plexus calendar and a business calendar and a family calendar, right? It all needs to be one, or else you're never going to be able to manage it. Because she says, think about it. The lives of CEOs of huge successful companies, they schedule their lives, right? And she does exactly what I do. And I've been doing this since day one. Here's my little notebook I started doing it in. I know Betty has probably seen this 1,000 times because she's been on every call since the beginning. But sit down on Sunday night, plan out your week, guys. Plan out your week. Identify the pockets of time that you're going to devote to working your business. So when are you going to reach out to new people? When are you going to follow up with people? When are you going to talk to your team? Okay? Get your 5-3-2 list. That's something I do. I sit down, I figure out, okay, when am I going to do my power hours? When am I going to schedule my team calls? And so I have an idea of Sunday when that's going to happen. I don't know when during the day it's going to happen. Some days I have a good idea, But if I know I have these 3 things to do, then I know they have to get done during that day. And so she says, do that for 15 minutes on Sunday. And of course, check in with your spouse or your partner or your kids or whoever is your shareholder and make sure they're on the same page too, because they don't want to be coming home on Wednesday night when you're on the team call at 8 and you didn't tell them about it, right? So then she says, once you figure out how much you're worth an hour and then you figure out your calendar, if it's not adding up, you gotta look at your stop doing list. If you're finding it hard to work your business, then you're doing too much of something else. She says 85 to 90% of your time as a business builder should be spent on recruiting, training your new people that are coachable and responsive, and doing 3-way calls or chats for your new ambassadors and your new team. That's what 85 to 90% of your time should be spent on. So if you're chit-chatting with sidelines, if you're scrolling the team page, if you're trolling Facebook, which is all stuff we have to do. We have to scroll Facebook, right? How else are we going to see what our friends are doing? We have to talk to our sidelines. They're some of the best relationships, right? You need to set a timer. You need to do your own business first and set a timer. And I have to do that now for Facebook. I've had some people on the team whose feelings have gotten hurt because I have not commented on their posts. But what they don't realize is I don't scroll Facebook anymore. I can't. So I set a timer for 15 minutes, and that's when I'm commenting on all of my non-Plexus friends' posts, and then another 15 minutes where I'm scrolling for my Plexus people. And so you guys may have to do that too. You really figure out where you're spending your time. And then one thing I love that she said, Jill said this on the call. Oh, good job, Tamsin. She got a customer. Woohoo! Work with your body. Okay, so if you are not good in the morning, don't schedule your power hour in the morning, okay? Because you are not going to be good to anybody. And I've done this, I can't tell you how many times. And now that I recognize it, I'm going to stop doing it. I went to dinner last night with Sarah and Ashley, and we were talking about the same thing. Since I work from home now, I stay up way too late. I never did that before when I used to work. I stay up way too late. So because I stay up late now, if I don't get through my IPA today, I'll tell myself, I'll do that at like 11. I'll be awake. Steve will be asleep. Adelaide will be in bed. Well, guess what happens at 11 o'clock? I'm awake, but ain't nothing happening. I'm a zombie. I'm awake, but I'm like zoned out. I don't want to message anybody. I don't want to be all happy and chipper and love my Plexus. I want to be on the couch watching Real Housewives, right? Or I want to be reading a book. So if you're not on your A game, don't schedule your Plexus work when you're not on your A game, okay? That's what I love. I like that she said that. And then another thing she talked about really quickly, and then we'll get off here. Don't do anything in person that you can do over the phone or via FaceTime. I'm not so sure I agree with all of this because I think you could take it too literal. And you would think, I don't have to meet that person for lunch to build that connection. I can just message them or talk to them over the phone. I still think getting out in front of people helps. Guys, that's how I signed 4 people this month. I actually left my house and I went and met them. And I didn't meet them about Plexus. I met them as a friend for lunch. They brought up Plexus. So if you get out, I really think. But if there are some things instead of calling someone and I don't know. There's certain things she talks about. With your business builders, instead of getting on the phone and explaining to them where it is in the back office, you can do it really quickly over a message. So I wouldn't take too much on that. But the one thing she does say, and I know all of you guys have struggled with this, and I think people probably still are, don't get distracted by the alerts, the notifications, the texts, the tags, all of that, the message threads. You have to know how to prioritize what's important for your business at that time. I get 100 notifications every time I open Facebook on my phone. I have to know to just ignore them. I have to know in my brain, if somebody tags me on the team page, it's probably a welcome, so I don't have to go check that right away, right? If Sarah Taylor tags me in something, okay, I'm going to have to check that later, right? But if somebody comments on my personal post, that isn't a Plexus person, I am checking that notification right then and there, right? So you have to know kind of how to prioritize. And she says that, and she gives you some tips. This has really helped me, especially with Facebook. She says check your email. For me, it's Messenger. Check your Messenger only 3 times a day. Now, I know we are all on Messenger way more than 3 times a day. But let me tell you one thing I found for me. If I'm on Messenger all day and I'm trying to shotgun out messages back to everybody, nobody gets a good answer. Because I'm replying back. In fact, Michelle, full disclosure, I messaged you back today while Adelaide was pooping on the potty, right? I just sitting there. Adelaide was like not talking, so I just had my phone and I sent you those voice messages, okay? I do that a lot. I am way more productive if I don't worry about getting back to everyone right away and I sit down for an hour and I knock out my messages, okay? We create this on ourselves because I know when I check Michelle's message, she's going to see that I've seen it, right? And if I don't reply, I'm afraid she's going to think I'm ignoring her, right? We do that to ourselves. We do that to ourselves. I saw her message. It would have been totally fine if I got back to her tonight, okay, right? But we do that to ourselves. So if Messenger is something that makes you overwhelmed and gives you anxiety or makes you feel like you're behind in your business and then you slowly start to check out because you feel like you can't get caught up, schedule Messenger time. I have to do that, guys. When I wake up in the morning and I'm going to work my business because I'm a morning person, I can't open Messenger right away. If I do that, I get sucked into every message. 2 hours later, I've not done my personal business. So, and she talks about that, about scheduling your things, turning off all the notifications. I have no notifications. Turned on in Messenger. My phone never beeps. It never dings. I never see the red things. They're off. But I'm checking them. Okay? So that's what she talks about. And yeah, Tamsin, you're right. I think meeting people in person is the way to go. And to me, because I had been having a dry spell on my network, I was trying to recruit the same fence sitters. I just started finding more people. And really, instead of focusing on the people that weren't joining my team, that really put me in a funk, or instead of focusing on the people that had quit over the spring and summer, I started focusing on just being a better friend. That's all I did last month. And that has resulted in 4 new people joining my team. I didn't even reach out to them about Plexus. We went to lunch, both of them. So I think you're right. Yep. You met with one person and they signed. See, you're batting 1,000. So, all right, guys. Thank you for being on. We went 6 minutes over. I'm sorry. Last week's it. Last week's the last week. We're going to read the last 3 chapters. Chapter 14, 15, and 16. Taking care of you along the way. You got to fill your bucket. It's a family affair. And then the last one, F, fear. So I'm excited. See you guys.